the Empath Sisters. Join these two healing sisters, Bev Lazar and Shelly Greenlaw, walking the path of spirituality and are here to share their experiences and guidance within the realms of energy, intuition, spirit, and beyond.
Welcome back. I'm your host, Shelly. And of course, with me, my beautiful co-host, my sister, Bev, is with us as well.
Of course, always. Hi, everyone.
And we are deciding to talk about what it was like to grow up with deaf parents. And just explain like what it was like for us and like our experiences, and not only just experiences, but like even just what it was like, even just with communication and all those
Yeah.
kinds of things. So we're super excited to touch on this topic
Yeah.
because even though, obviously we have another sibling, we do have a brother that, obviously grew up with us with deaf parents, but we
hmm
all have different perspectives, right, of
hmm
how it was for each of us. But we decided that we just touch on a little bit and we'll
Yeah.
see
Well, it'd
what.
be really interesting, even just your own perspective, and I think for many people, growing up with siblings, even though you've all had the same, experiences per
Yes.
se, situations, things like that you may go through. However, I definitely have learned through the course of my life and our journey of how we grew up and coming together, having discussions about different situations that we've been involved in, how it was like, oh, well, my perspective was actually this, this, and this on this
Right.
situation. And it's like, oh, really? Oh my gosh, I didn't even realize like I felt this way about the situation. And so I
Yeah.
feel like I'm sure many people out there would also agree that, you know, you'll have these different experiences even though it's the same experience, but it's just through your own lens.
Right.
And maybe for some people out there, maybe you haven't even had that awareness yet. Maybe you're just still in that assumption
Yeah.
that, your experience, your viewpoint was exactly what your sibling's viewpoint was.
Hmm.
And even when I, step it back further, it's like, okay, what was my parents' viewpoint? I
Right.
think about that a lot for myself of like, what was it like for our mom and
Hmm.
our dad, raising children being deaf in a world that's very much hearing and, never hearing like our voices and, what it just, there's just so much that is missed. And it's just interesting how I look back and then I flip the perspective and go, okay, well, what's that like now with me and my children?
Hmm.
What is their perspective of me? I remember when they're young and having that realization of like my kids going like, oh, you're actually like another person. You're not
Yeah.
just a mom, right? So it's just like, oh yeah, you're Bev too. So there's like all these other hats that we wear.
Yeah.
And so it's really cool to see those perspectives. But I do feel that our experience of growing up with parents who are hearing impaired really shaped who we are and also
Hmm.
our sensitivity to energy and reading people and
Yeah.
expressions and words and things like that. And so yeah, just I feel
Definitely.
like made us feel more heightened.
Yeah, and definitely body language.
hmm Yeah, absolutely.
So like with that, it's like, you know, part of that, I don't know why my throat is all of a sudden going.
Something needs to come out.
Yeah.
Of course.
Excuse me. And but I agree with Bev, like we all have, these different perspectives and it does, I feel,
Yeah.
and she agrees with me, is that it does shape us in how we grew up.
hmm
Of course, a lot of you know that I'm the oldest, and if you don't, I'm the oldest.
Yeah.
So
Which it's Shelly that's talking, just
yes,
so
that's
you
right.
all know.
In case you think we all sound a lot, we sound the same, but we're
Yeah.
obviously, anyway, yes, it is Shelley. So I'm the oldest, and then we have, like I mentioned earlier, we have another sibling, and
Hmm.
it's our brother, and he's about roughly 13 months apart from me. And
Yeah.
then Bev is roughly around 6 years or so apart from me.
Hmm. Yeah.
So for the very first little bit, it was just me, and then of course my brother.
Hmm.
And for me growing up, it was a lot different than how
Hmm.
Bev, when she
Oh,
came
for
into the
sure.
picture. So when
Yeah.
I was born, I actually never spoke words for
Hmm.
like a long time. My first language was sign language. So
Yeah.
I only communicated with my hands. And
Yeah.
so eventually, I did start to talk. And when I did start to talk, I actually started talking like our father. And our father, like, to explain how our father was hard of hearing is what he was classified. And
Hmm.
he could talk, and he had hearing aids to
Yeah.
like to hear you, but you also had to talk a little bit louder. So it's, when somebody says to you, oh, I can't hear you, and they automatically raise their voice, or
Yeah.
even to deaf people too, right? They start raising their voice thinking that you can hear them. Well, our
Yeah.
dad could, only because he did have hearing aids, and
Yeah.
he could hear and understand us for sure.
Hmm.
Now I started talking like him.
Yeah.
So the funny part was, it was funny that this little girl is talking the kind of way that our dad did. And
Well, you're going to mimic and
yeah.
kind of copy that. And
Hmm.
especially if you're also in a world of hearing people and other people are communicating in places you're going and things like that, and family members,
Yeah.
that maybe you had seen. So everyone's talking. So you're trying to talk, but yet you're going to mimic what's in your household, which
Right.
mom just makes noise. She's
Yes.
not, doesn't, isn't able to make anything clear, really.
No.
Even if she says our names,
It's very,
I feel like we just know that she's calling our names
yeah.
because of how it sounds, how she tries to say our names.
Yeah.
But to anyone else, they probably wouldn't have a clue what she is saying. So for
Yeah.
sure, for her, it's not very clear. So I'd imagine you probably, I mean, you look at little babies and toddlers, like they're just basically talking mumbly jumbly, right? They're just
Right.
like making noise and talking, and so I
Trying
could
to.
see
Hmm.
how, yeah, if you didn't have that guidance, the only words you're really hearing is how our dad is talking. So
Right.
that's how you're gonna probably speak, is
And
mimicking him.
and I did.
Yeah.
And I do remember, like, obviously not at about like two, like I do remember, like, because family members, especially our grandmother, she would tell me as a child, like when around about 2 years old, I
Yeah.
did start to talk, and it was like our father. And
Hmm.
I do remember, as I got a little bit older, maybe approximately maybe like three, maybe even closer to four. um,
Yeah.
it, well, even at 2 years old, I think, even, but our grandmother actually taught me to, like, speak words properly.
Yeah.
So, because like dad never, not that he didn't talk properly, it just, like I said, we were talking
Just the
about
way it
earlier, it was
came
just the
through.
way it came through. And
Yeah.
so my grandmother taught me how to speak. And to this day, I still
Hmm.
speak like I'm trying to teach someone how to speak a word, because
Yeah,
that's
for
how she
sure.
taught me. So,
Well, yeah, and at such a young age, I mean, it just becomes like natural to you to do that.
yes. And
Yeah.
because she did that, because I still remember it in my like the way she explained it to me. Because like
Hmm.
later when I got older, I
Yeah.
did ask. I remember asking, like, how the heck did I talk? Like,
Hmm.
like we have two parents that can't speak
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
and how am I, like, how did I talk? And I still remember grandma saying to me, well, I taught you, because I said,
Mm.
we couldn't have you going to school talking that way.
Yeah.
And so she helped me pronounce words and taught me how to speak properly.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then when Keith was around, I was the talker. So he
Hmm.
learned from me. And then,
Totally.
yeah.
Well, and
And
then you just start having more conversations between the two of you because
yes,
now you have someone to talk to
that's
without
right.
your hands.
Right. Yes.
So,
But I mean, we did talk to each other with our hands too.
well, of
I
course,
like, I
because
remember
he
there
would
was,
also have to learn sign.
yes. Yeah. Like I was
Yeah.
teaching him, so was mom, so was dad. We
Yeah.
were all kind of like, learning and teaching each other
Yeah.
from all of each other.
Hmm.
And yeah, I just remember so many memories of like talking for mom and dad anywhere we went. And
Yeah.
like I'm 4 years old,
Yeah.
and I'm speaking to adults for them. And,
Yeah.
it just was, that's just what it was like for me.
Yeah.
And then when you came along,
Hmm.
you were the opposite. You talked like we taught you how to
Hmm.
talk and all that,
Sure
but
did.
you did not want to learn sign. You were like,
No.
Shelly, ask mom to.
I'd be like, ask mom for a cookie. Be like, no, do it yourself. I don't
Yeah.
know how. I didn't. I mean, there was probably basic words I knew and
You
stuff,
knew?
but
Yeah. Yeah.
I probably just got by,
You
is what
did.
I would say.
Hmm.
I did the basics of just getting by. What did I
You
need to
know,
survive?
eat, drink, bathroom,
Yeah,
and
just basics.
snacks. Yeah.
And
It was
and I
so,
remember even at a young age, it's like embedded in my memory. Um, for myself, I attended the School for the Deaf in
yes.
Saskatoon when it was here. It was at the university.
Hmm.
I don't know what the building is now. It's not that anymore. But I and so yes, we had the School for the Deaf in Saskatoon, and I went there when I was 2 until I was basically 5 until I went to kindergarten.
Yep.
So for me, I went to school with all deaf children
Right.
before I went into the public school system.
Okay, let's just tell our audience though.
Hmm.
So like when I mentioned earlier, was that like Bev refused to learn sign
Hmm.
because she didn't understand that that was the only way we could communicate with our parents.
Hmm.
So then,
Totally.
so then we were like, well, if you're not going to learn from us, you're going to the school for the deaf. And that
That's
is why
exactly.
she went.
Oh, for sure. And that's my memory of mom. I can picture her standing there and
Yeah.
signing to me. And I didn't know what she was telling me, but I remember, like, I
Yeah.
now know what it is because I can interpret.
Yes.
But I remember her saying to me, like, you going to deaf school, go. And
Yep.
that's all I remember her telling me. And I was like, and I remember looking up at her and I'm like, okay. But I
Yeah.
didn't know what that meant
Yeah.
until, oh my gosh. And then we lived out of the city. So we had a taxi driver, this
Yep.
older gentleman, which I absolutely loved as a kid. He was like a grandpa, is how it felt.
Hmm.
And he was hired to drive me back and forth,
Yep.
pick me up, take me to the school for the deaf, and then he'd pick me up at the end of the day and then bring me back home.
Yeah.
And so I just, hang out in the back seat. So that was the first trip. And then once I got to the school, it was just like, oh, what is this place?
Hmm.
And so for me, I mean, I learned everything frequency really by vibration because
Yep.
that's what they taught all the kids at the school.
Right.
And so it was like every letter, I remember holding our fingers on the
To your
trachea
throat. Yeah.
to feel the vibration of letter A, B, and then we had to learn them that way. And it was like, oh, okay, so you got to learn how to say them, but you feel them at the same time.
Hmm.
So it was like every letter, we're doing colors, like music class. It wasn't like music, we're
Right.
signing, but you're feeling everything. So it was just wild for me to like go to school and have this experience and just have all my friends that were deaf. So I had to learn how to sign in order to talk to my
Yep.
classmates
Yep.
because they couldn't talk to me and I couldn't talk to them. So it was
Right.
just really neat for me. So Shelly and Keith were already, in public school,
Yep.
and
Yeah.
So yeah, so I kind of had this whole little adventure on my own, basically,
Yes.
until
Well, and
I
because
went
we're
to public school.
right, because like we're far apart in age at
Yeah,
that, like it doesn't feel like it now, but like
yeah,
when we were younger.
yeah,
And the fun, and it's not funny like haha like that, but like
yeah.
funny how like, my our parents ship you to the school for the deaf, but then yet she's learning like all the signs, and she'd come home and then she
Hmm.
would start to sign, and Bev, I mean Keith and I would be like,
Hmm.
what the hell are you saying? You know,
Yeah. What sign language is that?
because they had
Yeah,
just switched over. It was just starting to go from what we called like when Keith and I learned it from
yeah,
mom and you and dad, was
yeah,
that it was like an English way of it, like sign language.
yeah.
And Bev was actually starting to learn ASL, which was American
American.
Sign Language. And so
Yeah,
she would come home, and I'm going to give you an example. It would be, let's say she said, I wanted an orange. And like
yeah,
our sign for orange was, two pinkies going like this, circling together as an orange. When
yeah,
her sign for orange, she'd go and take her fist and go right to her chin and go orange. And
yeah.
we were like, what? And she's like, no, that's orange. And so she was sort of teaching us too at
Hmm.
the same time, so that we were all kind of caught up
Yeah,
together.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, and I'd have to say, even though I learned some American Sign, at
Mm-hmm.
that time it was so new,
Yes.
but they still taught Old English, is what they
Mm-hmm.
call it, reference it now. And
Yeah,
even I would have to say, just in our environment, because like you all spoke Old English.
that's right.
And so for me, I really adapted. I feel like I speak Old English now anyway.
Oh,
I rarely, I find, use American Sign, because I
yeah.
remember even doing like freelance interpreting, or even like with our mom now, she does a lot of American Sign because in the deaf community, I
They're
don't know why, they
evolving.
just are, yeah, they're just evolving in sign.
Yeah.
And so they use a lot of, American Sign Language. So I know for me, because I live close to our mom, she'd always be like, no, this is how you say Tim Hortons. No, this is how
Yes.
you say this. And she's always forever correcting me, like, that's the old way. This is how
Me
you
too.
say it now. Yeah. And that's just like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, and even when I freelance interpret, the way that I would be signing, a lot of the clients I would be interpreting for would be like, what are you saying? Like they'll
Yeah.
ask me and I'll be like, oh, and they're like, what sign are you using? And I went, oh, I'm Old English. I'm so sorry. That I don't use a lot of ASL, because they do, because they're keep
Right.
evolving. So they use a lot of ASL and are shifting kind of out of that Old English sign.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really interesting. So I feel like I'm still old in that way, but
Mhm.
I know that I just kind of probably blended the two. I probably have made up my own sign language, to be honest, at
I was
this
just going to say
point.
you probably have, because I'm still very old. Like I'm old English for sure.
Yeah.
Because mom,
Hmm.
whenever we do FaceTime or what have you, she corrects me quite a bit. And I'll
Quite
be
a
like,
bit. Yeah.
okay, mom, I'm not going to get it.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
But like she still understands what I'm saying, all the
Oh, for
things. It's
sure.
just she corrects me a lot and says, well, it's
Yeah.
this now, it's this now. And that's what it was like when you were going to the school for the deaf, is what
Yeah.
like I remember you teaching us different signs from
Hmm.
what we knew.
Yeah.
And which was pretty cool, because it was like this again, like no different than learning any new language. It
Yeah.
was still a language that we were learning from you.
Hmm. Hmm.
And yeah, so that's basically like the
The beginning.
beginning, yeah, of
Yeah.
our journey growing up with hearing impaired parents. And
Well, and just like, even I've said to a lot of my clients too, just giving them different perspectives of like how I grew up and why I am the way that I am today.
mhm,
And I explained to them that, you know, having deaf parents, and maybe other people haven't thought of this unless maybe you have grown up with some deaf parents, is that we are like the ears of the
Yep.
family.
We are.
And so,
The, the ears,
you
the voice.
oh, for sure.
Yeah.
We're the advocates.
Hmm.
We are also the ears. So even when I think about at bedtime, I'm like heightened at nighttime as well, because even though you have parents that you think, or growing up thinking, oh, your parents are there to protect you, but yet our parents couldn't hear if someone was going to break into our house.
Right.
And so you're always ears all the time.
Well, we were,
You
yeah.
listen for the bang, or
Hmm.
the wind, or it's is there a storm coming, because they also wouldn't know that stuff. And I
Nope.
mean, back in our day, there's no cell phones, no internet.
Right.
So it wasn't like we got these alerts and whatever. It was just like we listened for everything.
Hmm.
And then, yeah, and also being the advocate and speaking. So even just at a young age, even if I was with mom and Shelly, say, and you guys were at school or something,
Yeah.
it's interpreting other people and what they're trying to say to my parents. So I would say, like, at a young age, I would have to try to figure out what this adult is telling me, because I
Yeah.
would have also, as a child at 5, you don't really know everything. So
Right.
if this adult is saying blah, 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 and you're like, okay, and now I got to tell my mom what that is. So I've done a
Hmm.
lot of translation that way too. But
Yeah.
I also had to figure out, what is this adult telling me? And how do I have to figure out how important that is to my mom, and
Hmm.
how she needs to understand that information? So to even just like go through that process of thinking
Yeah.
was just, I feel like, why it's helped me in the way that I interpret today with spirit, of just like receiving information and trying to figure out how I'm supposed to explain that to the other person. And
Hmm.
I'm just going to do the best that I possibly can
Yeah.
to do that. I
Yeah.
also feel that's a little bit of my Virgo moon for sure, of, editing and trying to figure out the best possible way to say this or pass it along. But I do feel like that was all in preparation, to do the work that I'm doing today. And also just like reading body language and expression,
Hmm.
like every facial expression she would change. It was like you learned exactly how her feeling would be
Yeah.
according to the expression changing, and then the
Yeah.
body language, and just like all of it together. So,
Hmm.
so you think about that and living in that environment, it's like you're heightened all the time,
Yeah.
because you're feeling everything, you're watching everything, you're the ears for everything, and then advocating for that, and then still just trying to be a kid.
Yep.
It's just like, oh my God.
Hmm.
It's like, no wonder we're exhausted, honestly,
Yeah. Yeah,
to
for
just like
sure.
our nervous systems now. It's like, oh, it makes so much sense also, as to be so heightened and on alert all the time. And
Yeah.
then to try to tell your body you're not in that environment anymore, but you can't help it.
Yeah.
We're just so heightened and so in tune. So this is why we've had to learn all these different tools
Hmm.
to, I don't know, maintain our energy and take care of ourselves, and to change those neural pathways and just how much we feel.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah. Yeah. Like I've had, like I'm just doing some flashbacks here right now, but
yeah.
but like for me, I guess, like, yeah, I don't know how to explain this, but um I agree. Like, I mean, body language was a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I do remember so many times walking into a room, and if it was with like dad or mom,
Mm-hmm.
and it was almost like I could, yes, feel the shift
Mm-hmm.
in, either if it was mom or dad, but it was also in the shift in the room with the other people. So then with the other
Mm-hmm.
people, it was like looking at them going,
Yeah.
okay, like, I, I don't know about you, but for me, it was like, I felt like I knew
Mm-hmm.
whether they were comfortable with mom or dad or not. I'll say it
Oh,
that way.
totally.
And
Totally.
it was
You
really
could feel
like,
judgment.
yes, yeah,
I felt that a lot
a
with our
lot.
parents,
Yes,
like even
yeah,
just ourselves, and also had just having people stare at you all the time.
yeah, yep,
And that I hated.
yeah.
But I didn't realize that until I got older. Like,
Oh,
you're just
okay,
in it because my focus is like my parents and feeling everything.
right.
But then as I got older, you start to recognize that like everybody's always watching you all the time.
Uh-huh.
Every time like
See,
you're talking to each other,
yeah, See, for
Hmm.
me, I already knew that.
Yeah,
That was my thing when I was younger. Everybody was watching because,
for sure.
I mean, uh,
Well,
like you
it's not, you
said,
didn't
we're
really
the
see
ears
that
that,
very often.
yeah, like, but for me, it was that way because I would, and you probably have done this where I I grew to the point where like I could do a conversation with my parents
Hmm.
but listen in the background for everybody else, like
Oh,
what
for
their
sure.
conversation is and what they're saying, and they're looking and they're saying, oh, look at that little girl, she's talking to, like, look at how she's moving her hands, and like I heard
Yep.
that all the time.
Yep.
So it was always around, and the hardest part for me was, especially when I was younger, I mean, it still is today, but I'm just not really around mom. And I mean, dad's gone now, but it was the judgment, or it was the, making fun of, or
Hmm.
calling them a name, or, and they don't hear it. They don't
No.
know, but
No.
I do. And
Yep.
it just was very hard and hurtful. And it
Yep.
was just, that part was the hardest part, I think, you know,
Hmm.
with being with hearing impaired, parents.
Yep.
And that was a very hard thing for us.
Yep.
Um, and yeah, I don't
I
think,
feel there's less judgment now because I mean,
yes.
for me, I do spend a lot of time with our
Hmm.
mom, and still interpreting and taking them to appointments and going
Yeah.
out with them, and so I find that there isn't as much judgment. They're
No.
still watching,
Mhm.
but people aren't. Um,
They're not as mean as they were when
Yeah, like I
it
just feel like
feels
there people are
different.
just more understanding,
Yeah.
maybe more
Hmm.
awareness around it. So people are just like, oh, they actually take more interest and
Yeah.
or curious or kind.
Hmm.
And they definitely make more of an effort, I find. And some people actually I find more and more a lot of people just know basic signs,
Right.
like thank you or
Yeah.
hello, or my name
Hmm.
is, and then that might be like, that's all I know,
Yeah.
and I'm like, no, that's awesome. My parents love that.
Yes, they do.
Um,
Yeah.
and so, or they'll ask me questions, as well of like, oh, has your mom always been deaf her whole
Yes.
life? Or,
Hmm.
like, how come you're not deaf?
Yeah.
And we get that question a lot.
We do.
Or I do maybe,
Hmm.
but yeah, it's not genetic. It's a birth defect is why our parents
Hmm.
are deaf.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
had learned that our father our grandmother actually had received the German measles in her
Yeah.
first trimester of her pregnancy. So at that time in the 1950s, early,
Yeah.
they didn't really know what the effects were
That's
going to be.
right.
So they didn't really know. So when our dad was born premature
Hmm.
and also had a heart murmur, and but they didn't know that he had some deafness as
Right.
well
Yeah.
until he kind of got older, and then same thing, why isn't he talking? And he's
Yeah.
talking funny because he's growing up in a household of talking people.
Hmm.
So yeah, so that's kind of like the beginning of our dad's journey. And then for our mom, as we mentioned before, our mother was put up for adoption.
Hmm.
So we don't really know a whole lot, but I know like in paperwork that I've seen,
Yeah.
from what I would recall, is that her birth mom would have had, there was mention that she had, drank some alcohol,
Hmm.
I think smoked some cigarettes, things like that was in the paperwork, so
Yeah.
that could have contributed to, early in that development as well. How much
Hmm.
we don't know any of that stuff, but when
Yeah.
you look at it on a soul level, I look at it as like, oh, these are, experiences that they wanted to have in this lifetime. And
Hmm.
also for us siblings, they were the parents that we needed to have. I
Right.
always say, like, I'm very grateful my parents have taught me how to be of service. My mom has taught me how to not ignore people, to not make people feel invisible, even if they're
Hmm.
homeless people. Like, just everyone just needs to feel like they matter, that they're
Yeah.
here.
Hmm.
And so, because of the experiences I've had of seeing how people treated my parents, has definitely taught me that of like how I treat people with such respect and kindness, and that's something that's very important to me. And so I'm very grateful that she has given me that. I feel like that's something that we're losing in our world, and so
Yeah.
I love that. I don't know. I love that that was something that I gained from the experience of having
Hmm.
them as deaf parents, and yeah, I don't know. It's been an interesting journey. I mean,
Hmm.
I don't know any different otherwise, comparing to other people who have maybe
Right.
grown up with hearing parents, you
Yeah.
know. But I
Well,
remember even like younger being like, "Oh, I can swear."
yeah.
I remember that discovery of like, I can swear and my mom can't hear me. I could stay up late and she wouldn't know, you know?
Well, I used to tease, like, you know how, like, when you were a teenager and people would be
Yeah.
like, okay, we're going to sneak out of our house. We'll meet at like whatever time. And I'd be
Yeah,
like,
totally.
I can just walk out the door. I don't have to sneak out my
Yeah, I
window.
don't even have to jump out the window. Just walk out the door. Just have to be quiet with the
Yep.
door and,
Hmm.
so you're not
Yep.
making vibration in the
That's
house.
right. Yep.
Because that's all they would know. This is why we would be more heightened at bedtime because if someone's
Yep.
breaking in, they're obviously not pounding on the door, knocking to come in,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
They're going to be quiet. So
Yeah.
they're not going to hear that or feel
Yep.
that vibration. And that's also what I mean by hearing. My parents hear by vibration.
Right.
So, or our parents.
Yeah.
So in order for them to like hear anything, it's like,
Hmm.
I mean, pounding on the floor to get their attention is something I still do to this day. It's just
Well,
like
yes, it's a
habit. I'm just
habit.
like, even for my kids, I'll be like pounding the floor and I'm like, Tristan, it's like, oh my gosh, you don't have to hit the floor, but it's just
Yeah.
like second nature,
Yeah. Yeah. And
and
like, well, for
yeah,
us, well, and like you said, like it's definitely different, I think,
yeah,
for us living with, hearing impaired parents compared to hearing, only
yeah,
because, and I'm only saying this because, like you said, we had to pound on the floor to get their
yeah,
vibration, like attention. But we
yeah,
also had to flick lights. Our
hmm,
doorbell, our
yeah,
doorbell had to be connected to,
a
like
little
a
light,
light that would, when the person rang the doorbell, the light would flash. So they knew, oh, somebody's at the door,
yeah, pick
because
up
they can't
sound,
hear it. Right. And
yeah.
so we
Well,
were,
that also was to like not a great benefit because this it was like a speaker that's hooked up to a light bulb. So it was if it's hit a certain decibel, it
yes,
would pick up sound.
that too.
So
Yep.
if the telephone rang, if you
Yep.
screamed, if you're
Yep.
horsing around,
Yep.
I mean, or mom, if her tone got high,
Hi.
the light is
Mhm.
like flickering, flickering, flickering. It's just like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
See, and
So
we used to think it was spirit. No, just kidding.
yeah, for sure. If it flickered without sound, we
Yeah, we
definitely
knew
knew
it
there's
was
spirit.
spirit.
Yeah,
But
so just
that's,
would pick
yeah,
up
like
frequency, but
we
yeah,
grew
it's
up
cool.
with that type of living.
Hmm.
So I don't know about you, but for me, I
Hmm.
remember, like, our household was always quiet. Like,
Yeah.
we didn't have a blaring TV on unless it was Keith and I, like, wanting to hear a song, or you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't anything
No.
uh really like what we would be today, where we're like, oh, we're gonna have TV on, we're gonna have this on, you know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
for our household, it was quiet. And even when dad,
Hmm.
like, so again, I had mentioned that our dad was considered hard, hard of hearing. So
Yeah.
he could hear vibrational music, the
Hmm.
feel of the beat, he could feel it and hear it if he
Yeah.
had like headphones on. And so when he listened to music, yes, it would be cranked, but it would be cranked in his
Oh yeah.
headphones and we
I
wouldn't
never
hear
hear
it,
it. He never
so
played music out loud.
never. No,
No.
no, because he
There,
loved the feeling of that, the bass and the,
oh,
all
for
that.
sure.
And so
Well, and
we
to
did,
have it so close up,
yeah,
so he could really hear
yeah.
the music.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, and that's
Yeah.
why it was quiet in our house, because
Yeah.
we didn't hear that stuff because he had headphones on.
Totally.
So
The only
we,
noise for me is tone.
right. Yeah.
If it's quiet
Yeah.
and then there's noise that starts to come in because
Yeah.
we're used to quiet.
Yeah.
So then as it's quiet, and then all of a sudden if there's noise and then the tone is just getting heightened and it's just accelerating,
Yeah.
then that's very triggering
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
for me it would mean that there's something wrong.
Right.
It'd be like I'm on alert. It's like, well,
Yeah.
what's the problem? Like, why are we loud now?
Yeah.
So I can only handle so much noise.
Yeah.
For
Me
me, I
too.
love quiet. So
Me
it's like,
too.
oh, I'm
Hmm.
like,
I get
so
overstimulated so
yeah,
easily when it gets to a certain, like you said, tone or
point.
decimal. I just can't handle it, and I'm like,
Oh,
turn it
I
down or
know.
turn
I
it
have to go
off.
to the movie theaters with earplugs and spin class with earplugs because
Yeah.
it just, as soon
Just
as it
that
hits a certain
boom,
point, it's
boom,
just
boom.
like,
Hmm.
and again, my neural pathways, my nervous system just goes into that fight or flight freeze, like,
Yeah.
what's wrong? Shut down,
Yeah.
right? Where it's just like, no, 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 it's okay. And I can also get extremely exhausted
Hmm.
from too much. I always say I have a
Yes.
spiritual hangover the next day when there's
Yeah.
just like too much activity.
Hmm.
But yeah, and like for some people, like, how could tone be a trigger for you? And I'm like, yeah, I
Uh-oh.
know you wouldn't think having deaf parents, it would be like you grew up in a quiet household, but the experiences we had attached to the tone is what's triggering.
That's right.
And that's just the way it came through. So for
Yeah,
me, it's like, yeah, we had very much a quiet household,
we did.
unless we talked to each other. But
That's
other
right.
than that, it was very quiet all the
It
time.
really was. I mean, yes,
Mm-hmm.
we were kids, like we did do, things,
Mm-hmm.
but you're right. Like, really, the only noise that we had was either tone or us
Yeah.
talking to each other. And we would never like, I mean, yes, we yelled at each other, but it wasn't like, it was more
Yeah.
like, hey, Bev, or,
Yeah.
like,
Well, and also our parents didn't know when we fought unless
right.
they saw it.
Yeah.
So we could yell at each other and they'd have no idea we're pissed off at each other. They'd be
No.
like, what's happening? It's like, well,
Yeah.
then you have to explain the story. Well, she did this to me or whatever, right? I
Hmm.
remember when the story I always share is Shelly burning my forehead with the curling iron.
Yeah. Yeah.
And because I loved her doing my hair and stuff, because that's just the kind of girl I was.
Yeah.
And I remember just being annoying. I was that annoying kid. And not gonna lie. And well, just I wanted attention, I
Yeah.
think is
That's what
really
it
what it
was.
was for me
Hmm.
because Shelly and Keith were a year apart. So they were very close already before
Hmm.
I came along. And then
Yeah.
my brother really didn't, I feel like, take an interest in me growing up. And my sister was more of like the responsibility of me, even though she loved
Yeah.
having a little sister, it was still like, ugh, like, okay, but this is a responsibility.
Yeah.
So that was the feeling that I had. So
Mhm.
for me, it was just like, and sorry, I'll back up. Our dad, I felt, in my viewpoint, our dad was very much like close to my sister.
Yeah.
It was like Shelley was like the golden child in his eyes, is the viewpoint I had. And then it was for my mom, it was my brother. It was just
Yeah.
like, oh, she really very much was like, oh, that's my baby boy, and kind of like
Yes.
took him under her wing, is also my
Hmm.
viewpoint. So to me, it was just like, hello, I'm here. And then, being told I was the accident child. So you just kind of feel like you're just existing. So I think I just wanted attention all the time.
Yeah.
And especially because if you and Keith are already in school,
Right.
I didn't go to school full time yet. So for me, it
No.
was very much like I had days where I was by myself and it's quiet.
Yep.
So I remember playing by myself, and this is like, I was talking to somebody yesterday where she's like, oh, I talk to myself and I also like respond back to myself. And I'm like, yeah, me too. Like, that's my
Yeah.
norm. Like,
Hmm.
anything I did, I'm talking out loud, responding, pretending other people were there. But
Yeah.
who frickin' knows? Maybe I wasn't even pretending. Maybe I was just playing with a whole bunch of spirits the whole time,
Yeah.
just like had all these imaginary spirit friends.
Yeah.
But yeah, I very much, did a lot of conversating just
Hmm.
being in my own little
Yeah.
world,
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and even if mom was at work, dad would be home. Sometimes he'd be sleeping because he's on shift
Shift
work.
work. Yeah.
He'd maybe be on his headphones,
That's right.
so it
Yeah.
was just like, you just kind
Yeah.
of like, doing your own thing. We were pretty independent kids.
We were. Yeah. I was just
Like,
gonna say, I remember like, well, we did lots of things on our own, and
oh
we
my God,
never
it's
had.
amazing we survived.
I,
Sometimes I'm like, holy cow,
yeah. Like I remember
wild.
even like my favorite time of the day was school. And it
Yeah.
wasn't because I wanted to learn. It's not that I didn't like, I mean, I did like that part,
Yeah.
but I sometimes I didn't, of course, what kid didn't, but it
Yeah.
was really to be social because
Yeah.
we didn't have, like, even where we lived, I
Yeah.
mean, yes, we had some kids in the park, but
Yeah.
like to like socialize with other people was non-existent, really.
Oh, for
I
sure.
mean, so going to
Well,
school was super great because it was like, oh my God, there's the kids my age, and like I can
yeah.
just be me. I didn't
Just
have to be
yourself.
Shelly the interpreter, Shelly
Sister.
the sister, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
none of that. I got to
No,
be
totally.
me. And I remember it being such a great time. And then,
Mm-hmm.
when it was time to go home, it was like, okay, I got to put
Yeah.
that other hat back on. I have to be
Yeah.
what you said, the responsible one. And I
Yeah.
was the one that took
I was
care of
very
you guys.
responsible. I hardly did anything bad. I don't even know if I did really anything bad, so to speak. But and you're
Uh,
right about like spending time with other people because we were very sheltered, I would say.
yeah,
And again, we grew up in a world with lots of hearing people, so our parents didn't have friends with hearing people. Like
no,
they wouldn't be friends with our friends' parents.
no,
So we weren't socializing
no,
all the time.
no.
I think we only socialized with other people who had like were
That's right.
like hearing like
Yeah.
us, but
Hmm.
their parents were deaf. And I
Right.
can think of two families for sure that we spent time with.
Hmm.
And then otherwise, it was like our own family, extended family members,
Yep.
but they all spoke too. So
Hmm.
we hardly socialized with other people.
Yeah.
School was our social, like the only outlet that we
Social.
had, I would say, to
Yeah.
socialize with other
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we very much were in our own little world,
Yeah. And I
just,
I have to say too, like when it came to that, and when you said earlier, I think about how you said, about explaining things,
mm-hmm.
and how to, to a person and stuff. And I agree with you. I've had many people go, "Oh, you really explained that very well." And I mean
Mm-hmm.
like, well, I have to because
Yeah.
we had deaf parents that we had to explain,
Yep.
to them what they were,
Yeah.
a hearing person said or whatever. And the one
Yep.
thing I will have to say too is I'm, and this sometimes I felt like it kind of sucked a little bit, but
Mm-hmm.
was like whenever we went to the doctors or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like we got the information first.
Yeah.
And so we'd have to explain it to, mom or dad
Well, for sure.
and be like, and they'd be like, what's the matter? Right. And I'd be like, oh God, like I can't,
Mm-hmm.
you can't help put it on your face, right? Or
Well,
whatever
we're very expressive.
right.
I mean, naturally we are. I mean,
Yes.
I make so many facial expressions. It's
Right.
sometimes I'm just like,
Same.
I don't know, I feel like I'm like 30 different people in my face a day
Yeah.
just because of how much I move it. And
Right.
your body language, my hands, like
Well, just
I'm
that's just
a
it.
hand,
It's like,
my hands are flailing all the time.
and it's
I
like,
can't
oh
help
crap.
it.
I'd have to
Yep.
say there was a moments that sucked because
Hmm.
we got the information and then we had to translate it to them without
Of course.
trying to do it in a positive light or
Yeah.
way or whatever,
Well,
right?
I definitely
So,
learned from that to just be the medium.
right.
It's if I'm interpreting, it's not my opinions.
Hmm.
It's not for me to express. It's
Yeah,
not for me to show any type of a facial expression to the information because I want them to receive it firsthand as if they had heard
right.
it first. So I
But when
really
you're a
try to,
kid, but
oh,
you
for
don't
sure,
you
you're
don't
just
know how
like,
to
I
do
don't
that.
know. Well,
That's
you
what
don't
sucks.
even know what they're telling you, right?
Exactly. Yeah,
And that reminds me of when our stepdad got diagnosed with cancer. I mean,
right.
I'm the first one to hear it.
Yes.
So I'm just like, and you're interpreting at the same time, and you're just like, in my mind, I'm like, don't make any facial expressions. You
Mm-hmm.
deal with your emotions later of the
Mm-hmm.
information you just received. And this is like what I'm telling myself as I'm telling him, like, this
Right.
is what the doctor is saying, type of thing. And so it's just like, it's
Yeah.
hard.
Well, and the reason why I brought that up is because it just gave me a memory of like when I was young
Hmm.
and they found out that I had a heart defect,
Hmm.
like for me. And
Yeah.
I will never forget it because I was going in for surgery for something else and they had to stop, like they had to do all like the pre-op, right?
Oh, yeah. Right.
And I still remember it to this day. And it's like they did all the pre-op and then they were like, we need to talk with your parents before we start the surgery. And I went, okay, like
Okay. Well,
what?
I'm the only one that can talk to my parents.
Right? So that's when they were like,
So,
you need to talk to your, like, you're going to have to interpret it, what I'm going to say about why we're
yeah.
stopping the surgery. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And of course, mom, dad come and mom's
Hmm.
going, what's the matter? What?
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know yet. Like, I don't know
They
what's
haven't told me
wrong.
anything yet.
Yeah. And so then the doctor tells me that,
Yeah.
they found a heart murmur and they're not sure exactly to the extent or what kind or what, blah, blah, but they were concerned. And so, of course, I'm like, now because it's affecting me, right? Because this
Yeah.
is
Well,
now
for sure.
me. So I'm going like obviously in my face, and mom is like, what is the matter? Right.
Yeah. Sees the expression first. Well, even as a kid, it's like, okay, you tell me all this. That
Yeah,
could sound really scary, but like,
it
what does
was.
that even mean? Like,
Right.
how do you even think to ask questions
Right.
when you
Yeah.
don't have that
I
knowledge, right? Of
didn't.
just like, what's this going to look like? What does that mean? What does my
Yeah.
future look like? Do I have to do anything?
Yeah. And
These
he
would be
did. He
questions
explained to,
parents would
yeah,
ask too,
exactly.
but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And so,
Yeah.
of course, I explained and all that. But that's what I
Hmm.
mean by like sometimes it just would suck because I wouldn't know how to control that part of me where,
Yeah.
I'm trying to explain to her or to them,
Oh, yeah.
what's going on and whatever, right? So,
Yeah,
but
totally.
anyway,
Yeah.
that also, like I said, all of this stuff that we talked about is
Yeah.
that we really feel that obviously with having, hard of hearing and hearing impaired parents was
Yeah.
very, like it just totally helped us in a lot of ways with our body language for people, intuition, facial expressions,
Yeah.
and just reading people. Like
Yeah.
I could read a person so easily by just by their energy. You could just like
Oh,
we
yeah. I don't
felt
even need
it.
people to talk to me.
No, like it
It's
was
like,
just like just
I can
knew.
just look at you and know. I can walk in a room and know.
Yeah,
You can text me. I most likely am going to know.
yeah.
Even though
Mhm.
texting, I know for a lot of people, there's no tone with text,
There's tone.
but there's a vibration that comes with
Hmm.
it, and
Hmm.
it's easy. I think this is also where people get maybe mixed up with that too.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not a great way to communicate to people,
No.
but yeah, and yeah, no, it's definitely enhanced. It's been a great gift, I would have to say, to have had that experience and to be who I am today and the work that I do. And
Hmm.
yes, it's a gift and a curse at the same time, but I've learned to work with it and understand it that it's not a curse. It is such a gift.
Yeah.
It's just it wouldn't be given to me and I wouldn't have chosen it to kill me, in that sense of
Right.
like where you just feel so much that you can't handle life. It's hard to go out and to be in public and to like
Hmm.
communicate and be with people and go to different public settings. And that's all been very hard, but it's definitely been an amazing opportunity to learn to be immersed in that
Hmm.
and to read it and to fine tune like actually what is going on as opposed to just feeling it all at once,
Yeah.
you know,
Hmm.
which is I think really cool. I
Yeah.
love that. I love that ability to be able to do that.
Oh,
So
for sure. For
and just
sure.
like reading the room and just helping people to feel more comfortable. You can
Yeah.
pick up on the ones that are not feeling as comfortable or
That's
maybe who are
right.
more shy. And it's just like,
Yeah.
I'm going to talk to you and make you feel comfortable. And then it's like,
Yeah.
oh, you're needing some space. Okay, that's okay. So it's just,
Hmm.
it's finding the station that everybody's at and adjusting.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what I'm constantly doing is just adjusting myself to meet you where you're at.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
So it's
Yeah.
like just reading it, pulling it into a neutral, and then going like, okay, this is how I'm going to approach that. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's been interesting.
Yeah.
It's been
Because
an interesting upbringing. And then to think about, how I raised my kids, just also being heightened, but being there, and being
mm-hmm.
grateful to be able to hear my kids' voices and their,
Yeah.
communicating with them and expressing. Because again, growing up with our parents, I know for myself, I didn't get taught a lot of stuff.
Nope.
So, like,
Neither did
there
I.
was no conversations or, how are you feeling today? How was school?
Yeah.
How are your friends?
Yeah.
Like relationship conversations, like
Mm-hmm.
nothing.
Yeah.
You couldn't even ask for help for school
Nope.
because there was only so much that, I mean, they wouldn't know, they wouldn't understand.
Yeah.
Even reading, like they couldn't help us read our books every night that, your teachers send home,
That's right.
right? So you're
Yeah.
just reading them and you're like, well, I hope I get all this right. You have no idea,
Yes.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's just looking at all those little things that I was grateful to have those experiences with my kids of like being able to
Mm-hmm.
sit down and read these stories with them
Yeah.
and hear them enunciate words and correct them and help them. But at the same time, it's like, oh, yeah, I didn't have that. Like we did that on our own,
Yeah.
It's like so many
Well,
things we did on our own.
I know. And not only that, it's like I know this, like for me growing
Hmm.
up, I remember going to like my friends, you're lucky your mom can say like your name.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You're lucky that they can say like I'm proud of you, like by their like mom
Just to
and
say
dad did
it.
that, but just to say it. It wasn't, not
Yeah.
that they didn't, it's just it was a different way. And so
Oh, for sure.
I felt like you, like it was almost like, how like we take, so many people take things for granted, and those
Hmm.
are little things that people take for granted, right?
No, totally.
And we didn't have that opportunity to have that. And so
Yep.
I agree with you. It was amazing when our children like said, mom and all that, but
Yeah.
it same thing. It'd make me go, oh, but I didn't, I
No.
didn't get to. And the other thing that I used to say too was like,
Hmm.
you got to, go to the door. Let's say if you were at your house, you got to go to the door and open the door and go, Mom, I'm going to the store. I'll be right back.
Yeah.
We didn't have that.
No. You're like stomping on the
Yeah,
floor or you got to go find them.
we had to find them.
It's
And we
like,
had to
where
go and
are
say,
they?
yeah, like,
Yep.
and tell them that way. So, like, just
Yeah.
little things like that, really, I agree. We just
Just wasn't the experience we had.
wasn't. That's right. Yeah.
Yep.
So,
And even our own music, we could crank it.
yeah.
We could have conversations about stuff, even though, I mean, our mom is really gifted. So I mean, it felt like
Yes.
she knew all the things we were talking about
Oh,
anyway. So it was
so
just
many
like,
times we would be like,
it's like you can't have conversations even around her. She picks up on it. You got to go hide, and it's like,
it's like,
so
is
she
she
wouldn't even know you're
listening? How did she
talking.
know that?
I know, it's so creepy. It's like, do you remember so many times it'd be like, wouldn't it be weird if like one day mom just talked and just said, ha
Yeah.
ha, I've
Yeah.
been hearing this whole time. I'm not actually deaf. And it's like, we used to honestly say that so many times
So
because
many times.
she is so good,
She, she's so good and so
literally.
intuitive that she just knew. Like, it was like
Hmm. But she's
freaky.
Pisces. She's
Yeah.
out
I
there
know.
and
I
she just
know.
picks up on it. She'll be like, I don't know. She just grabs the information
Yeah.
and uses it. And prime example, had a get together, family get together for Easter, and we were all having a conversation. And the person that's talking to me is on the other side of the kitchen, and my mom is sitting in the middle, so her back is to this person, and she's talking to me and telling me
Okay.
something. And then all of a sudden, my mom will ask, she literally asked me the same question that this person just told me about, like, oh, we just got our child into daycare. We just tried this new one, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, my mom goes, is she going to start looking for a daycare? And I'm just like, and my daughter was there and she was just like, oh my gosh. She's like, of course, grandma would pick up on that. Like, she just in the conversation anyway.
Yeah.
And she is not a lip reader,
Right.
as not her forte.
No.
But like I said, her back was to her. So she had no idea, but yet she knew. And it's just
Yeah.
like, no, she's listening to the whole conversation. She's not
Hmm.
missing out on anything. In her mind, I feel like she knows exactly what's going on. Like she's reading everything and
Yeah.
she interprets that way. And I feel like she's actually like hearing everything, but not realizing she hears it.
Hears it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just like
Yeah.
so incredible. It's just
And
so
at the
cool.
same time, not talking. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like she's
exactly.
just sitting in the,
She's
seriously,
like
up in the
sitting in it.
realm.
Yeah. And then when she feels like she wants to have a part of the conversation, then that's when she asks the question or she'll talk
Right.
about something. And it's like, you're literally sitting here just like all the rest of us hearing people. You're hearing
Hmm.
everything that's going on in the conversations and you're
Yeah.
asking the appropriate questions at the right times
Yeah,
too. So it's like,
exactly. Yeah.
I know you're listening to everything, but listening in a deaf way, like
Yes.
in a
Yeah.
frequency,
Yeah.
information, intuitive way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's been a cool journey growing up
Yeah.
that
It's
way.
definitely
I mean,
been a
I'm very
journey.
grateful for it. It's been interesting. I'm not gonna say it was always easy.
No.
There's definitely hard parts to it, and it's definitely
Hmm.
made me very mature, at a young age. And I mean, I've always felt older
Yeah.
than I actually am, just because I feel like I've had to hurry up and learn things so much quicker,
Yeah.
and just be responsible because I didn't have that somebody to always be that person for me.
Hmm.
So it's yeah, well, it's made me who I am today. So I'm
Hmm.
really
Yeah.
grateful for that. So yeah, but it's definitely evolved and changed
It
from
has.
when we were younger and
Yep.
to nowadays, and just taking them places and interpreting, and her teaching, and she's still evolving, and other people
Yeah.
more receptive and excited to learn or ask
Hmm.
questions. And yeah, and I love that view for myself, just for them, where it's just like,
Yeah.
that's got to feel so much better for them because you're feelers.
Hmm. They are.
So, just to feel more accepted, or
Yeah.
maybe just, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Because it didn't feel like that when I was growing up
Mm-mm.
with them. It
No,
was definitely not that. There were so many people that were not kind, not understanding,
no. People
not,
made fun.
yeah.
People would call them, oh, your parents are just deaf and dumb. They
Yeah.
used to say that all the time,
Well,
or be
other
like, oh,
words too that I
oh
won't
yeah.
mention.
No,
Yeah,
exactly.
it just was
But
not a
that's
very good time.
just,
It
it
wasn't.
just goes to show how we've evolved
Yeah.
too,
Yeah.
and understanding so
Hmm.
much more,
Yeah.
and having kindness. So,
Yeah.
which is good,
It is. Yeah. No,
it
for
is nice
sure.
to see. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
oh man, I could talk about life with deaf parents for like hours, I'm sure,
Hmm.
just because of all the different experiences that we've had, or I've
Yeah.
had, even still
Yeah.
to this day for myself. It's just like,
Yeah,
wow,
because you are
man.
closer to mom than I am, but like I can remember lots of stories growing up with
Yeah.
mom and dad, and like just even in our household, and like what stuff was going on and how the energy would amplify, and
Oh,
like
definitely.
all the things that we,
Yeah. Even
yeah,
emergency situations,
right.
like, oh, yeah. And like just staying out late doing
Yeah,
stuff. Like, we have no way of like calling our parents to tell
I
them
know.
that we're going to be late or something, right? So, like, you had to make sure
Yeah,
you were
they
home on
knew.
time, because they
Hmm.
would worry, because they'd be like,
Yeah,
we can't get a hold of our child. Like, I
nope.
can't even imagine how stressful that would have been,
I
as
remember a
parents.
stressful one time with
Yeah.
Keith. I'll
Oh,
never forget that.
yeah.
When he was actually sleeping in his bedroom, but
Oh, yeah, right.
we were like
And
looking
thought he was missing.
everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, how
Oh,
scary that would have
that was
been.
so scary. I'll never
And just
forget
I
it.
think of like how independent we were, and like how
Yeah.
so many things could have went wrong and bad.
Yes. Yeah.
And like, thank God they
Nobody would
didn't,
have
and
known. Like
nobody would have known. I know.
nobody would have
I'm
known.
so grateful we have like such good protection, but
Yeah.
again,
Oh,
mom was really intuitive, so probably should have been a little FBI, a little
yeah.
investigator somewhere. She would have known
Some,
something, I'm sure.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, no,
Yeah. Oh
it
my
was just
gosh.
cool.
Yeah.
It's a cool experience. But yeah,
Very.
so it's a little snippet that we wanted to
Yeah.
share about our experiences and just different perspectives,
Hmm.
and how, growing up this way has also just made us, I don't know, maybe heightened in our intuition,
Yeah.
in reading, feeling, all of our abilities, and it's definitely shaped who we are today.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it was really cool. So
For
yeah,
sure.
thanks for sharing your perspective.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah, you're welcome. Like, we can't speak for
I
our
mean, there
brother,
was a
but
lot,
yeah,
but there's a lot, like, I mean, there are so many things that
yeah.
we could say, right?
Oh, for sure.
And we could, like you said earlier, we could be here for a long time, but
Absolutely.
that
Yeah.
literally was just a snippet. So
Yeah.
maybe one
So
day
cool. So,
we'll talk about other stories.
oh, for sure. But yeah, just to share
Yeah.
with our listeners, a little
Hmm.
bit more about us and
Yeah.
kind of maybe why we are the way we are today.
Hmm.
And and even if you do know us and you do spend time with us in person, also that might give you another little viewpoint into, yeah, our little
Why
quirks,
we are, we are.
why we are the way we are. So yeah. Yeah. So,
Uh-huh.
yeah. So, thank you everyone for tuning in and listening to us and supporting us as always. And if you have any questions, send them our way. Or if
Yes.
you had any experiences, or maybe you knew other people that grew up in the deaf community as well, or anything like that, I mean, we'd love to hear. So, that
We
would
would
be really
love
cool.
it.
So, but yes, thank you for tuning in. Shelly and I are sending you all love, light, and gratitude um, wherever this finds you today. So take care, everybody.
Take care, everyone. Bye.